They probably do. It's rugged. I remember reading that
Good evening. We're going to go ahead and get started. I want to thank everyone for being here with us tonight as I call to order the August 8th of 2022 meeting of County Council to order. Again, thank you all for being here as we do the business of the county. I hope that we'll all be respectful and civil as we move forward. Councilman Wilson will be joining us. He's just a few minutes late and has instructed us to go ahead and get started, which is the sake of everyone's best for their time. At this time, I'm going to ask Councilman Alex Seda if he would please lead us in the invocation and the pledge.
Lord, thank you for bringing us here together safely. Give us all the wisdom and the discernment to make the best decisions in the mind with the will of the community tonight. Look over our first responders, the police, military, and their families. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The first true item on our agenda tonight is our public forum. It's a time for the community, for those residents of Pickens County to give us feedback on issues that you deem important. It's important to remember it is not a time for interaction or back and forth. It's not a town hall forum. It's just a time for you to share. And there's been great things that have come from public forum in the past. We do limit public forum to 3 minutes so as to allow for as many as people as possible to speak. We also cap it at 30 minutes because there's a long agenda or a lot of other items that we need to cover. So I do appreciate those that do speak, but please be mindful when the alarm goes off at the 3-minute mark. It's not anybody being rude. It's not anybody being upset. It's just simply trying to make enough time for everyone. So Madam Clerk, I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. Madam Clerk, if you would, please call our first speaker.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, I call William Owens. William Owens. Kim Kelly. Kim Kelly. Melanie Sinowski. Yes, Sinikowski.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Melanie Sinikowski, and firstly, I would really like to acknowledge and thank all the councilmen that very kindly were generous with their time and returning my phone calls and also meeting with us directly. And also Megan has been very polite and very prompt and professional with me in my numerous phone calls, so I appreciate that. I'm here to speak about Route 11. My husband Rick and I have lived at 5 minutes from Table Rock for about 8 years now, and as you all know, it's a stunningly, stunningly beautiful area. And it's my understanding that the council is moving forward with a proposal, and the county administrator has also presented some ideas about how we best restrict or move forward with the future of Route 11. And it looks to me like, at first glance, the county is really listening to the people's mandate, and that there's no new commercial, residential, or industrial development with a 100-foot setback on either side and single homes on a minimum of 5 acres. Everything at first glance looks very copacetic, and all these exceptions begin to emerge. All our requested restrictions are essentially nullified. This is not acceptable. It would allow subdivisions and 3-story commercial establishments, for example. You appear to be appeasing the public who wishes to keep Route 11 its picturesque natural state, but then you're allowing all sorts of exceptions. You would allow development with only design ideas or rules, for example, like materials used or roof design. In my discussions with Roy Cosner, you said we don't want any unintended consequences. In this case, it would be the inability to enforce and police these restrictions. That's problematic. Also, allowing expansion of business would surely result in an unsightly, unwanted campground at the base of Table Rock in South Saluda. Development is nipping at our heels. Chairman Bowers, you lamented over the loss of farmland, which is now Woodruff Road. And Mr. Feimster, you remarked on the envy of other counties for what we currently possess. Let's work as a team and not succumb to development pressure. Develop an unambiguous, enforceable plan which clearly states no new development, a plan which covets, cherishes, and protects the Cherokee Foothills Scenic Highway as the name suggests. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Kilborn.
Hello, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Mark Kilburn. I live on Dorothy Lane. It's about a half a mile from the intersection of New Hope Road and Route 11. And I listened to the council meeting last month, and after the public comments were called that were calling for like no or limited development on Route 11, after they were ended, I heard that, we hear you loud and clear, and the public was assured that the council wanted the same exact thing as we did, But then I looked at the development standards ordinance, and a couple of things popped out. I mean, the definitions look good of the 1,000 feet on either side of the center line, and Section 2B started out pretty well with, any and all new commercial, residential, or industrial development of Highway 11 is hereby prohibited except as follows. And that was a single-family residence on 5 acres, so thank you for that. Renovations no closer than before, okay. Agritourism, okay. And then I saw other commercial or residential as described, and I said, uh-oh. Then what followed were building and site limitations, limitations on materials, building configuration, architectural limitations, roof design limitations, subdivisions allowed, parking lot limitations with certain tree cover standards, exterior lighting, signage limits, 3,000 square foot building rules, building facades up to 100 feet of frontage on Highway 11 were a few of them. And this kind of sounds like development to me. And it appears from the standard that you guys may not think you'll lose control of Route 11 as Greenville County did, which I heard at the last meeting as well, but it sounds like you just have. I believe that the natural beauty of this 21-mile stretch of road can only be preserved, and construction on it can only be controlled by really not allowing it to start. It's been said by others that this section of road is a wonder, and it has 2 of the 7 South Carolina wonders off of it. And would you rather trade that for development? I mean, businesses do go out of business, but you destroy the natural beauty and it's gone for good. So I would suggest that please, at a minimum, if you could go back to section 2 and end it at 2BC and then delete all of section 3, that would be good. So thank you.
Barry Myers.
My name is Barry Myers. I've lived off of Highway 11 for 22 years. Cherokee Foothills Scenic Byway has magnificent vistas without the views of RV parks, subdivisions, and convenience stores, etc. This corridor isn't your typical parcel of land. It is an area that is shared by fishermen, hikers, birders, and lovers of the outdoors who visit here for these purposes. not for the development of this land. We are losing these green spaces daily by the growth of Greenville, Easley, and now Travelers Rest. I'm afraid Highway 11 will be next if this ordinance passes. At the last county council meeting, it was proposed that there should be a setback of 1,000 foot on both sides of Highway 11. No new manufacturing, no new commercial businesses, no new subdivisions, and only single homes on 5-acre lots. I'm disappointed after reading your draft proposal for Highway 11 corridor. In the beginning of your proposed ordinance, it states prohibition of new construction, but then continues with specific exceptions, that is, renovations and expansion of existing commercial businesses, agritourism, manufacturing, allowing all commercial and residential buildings with design restrictions, including building heights up to 35 feet high. In the draft proposal, Highway 11 corridor is defined as a 1,000-foot area from center line of Highway 11 overlay on both sides. However, in Section 4, setbacks, it states all buildings on a lot will have a minimum setback of 40 feet from Highway 11. With a 40-foot setback, there is no buffer along Highway 11. With design restrictions, this is still unacceptable. Who is going to enforce these design restrictions? If this proposed ordinance is approved as is, it will allow Aunt Sue's to have an RV park on their property along Highway 11, as well as another proposed RV park on the corner of South Saluda and Highway 11. This intersection is the deadliest intersection along Highway 11 in Pickens County. Try making a turn off Highway 11 onto South Saluda or Country Creek Road with a truck or automobile going at 70+ miles an hour behind you. Now visualize an RV making that same turn. A disaster. I think this proposed ordinance is an example of the old idiom, the devil is in the details. This spells disaster to me. If you vote for this proposed ordinance, it tells me that none of you are truly concerned about protecting Highway 11 for future generations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kenneth Ketter.
I'm Kenneth Ketter, a retired professional engineer. My wife Christine is here. She's a retired accountant. We live up behind the winery on South Saluda Road, and we enjoy it there very much. I was quite disillusioned to read the proposal that came from the staff of the county administrator, because like a former speaker here tonight, we left the meeting last time understanding that you were all or mostly in agreement with us and you were going to work on our behalf. And then we saw this proposal come up and it's not at all. And you know what? I've raised 6 kids, my wife 3, and we know when our kids are trying to scam us. And you're doing a very a very adolescent job of it, but you're not hiding anything. You're trying to scam us out of what we thought you were in agreement with us. That's about all I have to say.
Thank you.
Dan DeWitt.
Good evening. My name is Dan DeWitt. I live at 105 Wilshire Court in Easley, and I speak tonight in support of the effort to maintain the natural beauty of the Cherokee Foothills Scenic Byway. I read the material of the County Administrator, Ken Roper, and we're told that County Council's own studies and that of the state and regional agencies, along with extensive community involvement, and here I think we can read voters, they all want the County Council to protect the unique character of this scenic road. You, as council members, have the authority to enact ordinances which will carry out those recommendations. You have already unanimously resolved to advance the concept that Highway 11 is a desirable natural asset and should be preserved for future generations. For the Cherokee Foothills Scenic Byway, the stated general concept is that all development along the corridor is prohibited. This should mean no residential development, no industry, no golden arches, no mobile home parks, no commercial use or expansion. But we need to emphasize the problems, deficiencies with Mr. Roper's material when it comes to protecting and preserving Cherokee Foothills Scenic Byway. We have these limited, specific exceptions. What are they? Well, they've been detailed. Section 3.6 speaks directly to allowing residential subdivisions. It allows for new commercial development. The limit with the commercial development is that the buildings are restricted to 3.5 stories. But there are some positives. Commercial signage and lighting is constricted. It's not prohibited, but it is limited. Existing commercial use cannot be expanded any closer to the right-of-way. Single-family residential constructions limited to lots of 5 acres, but with the exception of hardship on the part of the property owner. Buffers, those visual barriers for the motorists, are required along the highway, but these exceptions and limitations don't prohibit the development they claim to portray. They specify the colors you can use, what construction materials you can use, how high you can build, and how your parking lot must be landscaped. But when you get past 1,000 feet from the highway, all bets are off. This is not prohibiting development. This does not protect this unique area. This is putting lipstick on a pig and hoping the public doesn't notice when it oinks. In this instance, I believe the role of county council members is akin to that of the Hippocratic Oath. Do no harm. Please protect this beautiful land for now and the future.
Thank you.
Gordon Levy. Gordon Levy. Tom Bauer. Bear.
Good evening. My name is Tom Bear. My wife and I reside at the corner of Carrot Creek, Highway 11. We raised our children in Easley and have hiked most of the mountains from the eastern shore of Lake Kiowee to Jones Gap State Park. In 2016, we purchased our property from the Grant family. One of the predominant reasons we chose this parcel were the covenants the previous owners had sanctioned. One resident per parcel was a particular interest to us. 2019, we purchased the adjacent parcel, 40 acres. We purchased it as well for the additional buffer. The Grant family has been an exceptional steward of the property along 11 corridor, using organizations such as Upstate Forever to preserve the beauty of this area. The residents of northern Pickens County have chosen this area for a reason. The quiet, the beauty, the wildlife. We're okay if we don't have all the conveniences afforded to those living in the cities. We get our gas in Greenville, Pickens easily for the most part. If we need something for the lawnmower Saturday, we go up to the corner of Highway 178 and 11. We shop at Ingles when we're in town, but if we need something in a pinch, we run to the mall at the four-way stop in Pumpkintown. A quieter life is why most of us have chosen to live up here. It's why the visitors from other parts of the country have chosen to see Pickens County has to offer. From Table Rock Tea Company to Victoria Vineyards, to enjoying an ice cream cone at Aunt Sue's, Highway 11 corridor has established itself as an ecosystem all to itself and is worthy of preservation. Thank you for choosing to serve the residents of Pickens County. Please consider doing the right thing for us, and that us includes you. Restrict commercial growth along Highway 11. Oconee and Greenville have already shown us what it will look like if we don't. Restrict housing density to parcels with single-family homes, not subdivisions. Consider leaving your legacy as a council member and keep our county from being overdeveloped. I'd like to close by remembering a man who once had a vision of preservation. The road he endured was much steeper than that we must travel. Most of us in this room have him to thank for allowing us to visit some of the greatest natural wonders in America. The father of our national park system, John Muir, once said, "The mountains are calling and I must go." Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you.
Richard McWay.
I have a different concern that affects all of Pickens County. Start with June 22nd, the Pickens Courier, admin again requiring masks. These people have had over 2 years to educate themselves on the functionality of masks, and they've yet to educate themselves. It's very troubling. And also in that article, DHEC is glad that research has shown that these vaccines are safe and effective in these age groups. And they're talking 6 months up to 19. I'll cover that in a minute. And then a week later, Dr. Traxler, the vaccine for children 6 months old to 4 and 5 years old is approved for both Pfizer and Moderna COVID-19 vaccines. This is very exciting news. Exciting for who? Anybody that's injecting their kids with this, it's insanity. And plus, on that same article, you should get tested even if you're not having symptoms so that you know your status to make any necessary decisions to protect those around you. It's not for you to know your status, it's for them to know your status. More insanity. And then on July 13th, DHEC Omicron strain brings new subvariant of COVID-19. A new subscariant is what it is. Currently available vaccines have helped reduce the most serious outcomes. Another blatant statement without any facts to support it. Everything that they say, they cannot present data or facts to support these outlandish guidance that they propose. Another thing, this is as of August 5th, last Friday. Nearly 30,000 deaths reported to VAERS, a vaccine adverse event reporting system, including 17-year-old who died of myocarditis 5 months after his Pfizer shot. If those numbers do not concern you, I don't know what to tell you. How many deaths is too much? And there's babies in that list. Babies are getting killed from this. I don't know who's injecting them. Another article, 6 Canadian medical doctors died within 2 weeks after their 4th COVID booster shots for employees started at one hospital. This is at Canada's Trillium Health Partners Mississauga Hospital in Toronto, where 3 physicians from that hospital died unexpectedly within the same week. And there's more information. Expect insurance companies to sue vaccine manufacturers to cover payouts for explosion of early unexpected mortality claims. Lincoln National reports 163% increase in death benefits paid out. And the last thing is on monkeypox. Tedros, the WHO guy, says monkeypox is among men who
Thank
have
you, sir.
sex with men. That's
Thank you.
all you need to know about
Thank you.
monkeypox. Thank you.
Stephen Smith.
Okay, I'm a resident of Pickens County. I live on South Saluda Road near Table Rock, and it's right off Highway 11. So I would like to speak on the topic of the development of Highway 11. I read the document titled Highway 11 Ordinance, dated July 28, 2022, and authored by Ken Roper, which contains language for the second reading. Okay, so I want to comment on that document. Consistent with some of the other speakers here tonight, I would like to say that the document looks good at the beginning. Sections 1 and 2 appear to be what we all seem to desire for the area, and that is a lack of development. Except when it gets to section 3, that's where a conflict seems to occur. So I want to suggest that the section 3 of that document should be removed, because either you're going to allow development or not. If you're going to not allow it, then don't talk about development. So just get rid of section 3 to be consistent. Otherwise, I'm wondering what's going on. Are you trying to finagle us, or are you trying to deceive us, or what? What exactly is going on there? So that's what I want you to know tonight, okay? So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Rick Sinikowski.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Richard Sinikowski. My wife Melanie and I have 7 acres up next to Table Rock, and we love the area. In this and in the previous section, approximately 20 people have stepped up to express their concerns and desire to protect the Route 11 corridor. Their arguments have been thoughtful, they've been passionate, and they've been persuasive. And virtually everyone who spoke indicated their positions represented those of their friends and neighbors, and those sentiments echoed throughout the community and beyond. Last session, the council expressed their desire to protect Route 11, pledging they are working faithfully to address these concerns. Yet, in spite of these wishes, among the majority of residents and the assurances of the council, it is clear to me the ordinance in its current form will not adequately ensure the protection of the Route 11 corridor. While the draft states, quote unquote, all new commercial and residential development is prohibited, numerous carve-outs and exceptions exist, in effect nullifying all the protections. Let us limit the likelihood of unintended consequences and remove the exceptions. Revise the language of the ordinance to capture the spirit of those who have come before this council expressing their desire to protect Route 11. In its current form, it has limited efficacy and is ripe for developer exploitation. In short, it will not ensure protection of the region. Residents have 3 simple requirements. They want the corridor protection spelled out clearly in unambiguous language without any exceptions or carve-outs. 2, they want this done in a timely manner. And 3, they want the protections enforced. Please, we ask respectfully for the council to take a look at this again and revise the language of the ordinance such that it fully incorporates these requirements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan Quinn.
I'm Alan Quinn from Easley, and I filled my truck up and my car this week, $190. Gas prices are absurd, and on top of that, we are closing in on hyperinflation. I don't know how those on a limited or fixed income are going to do it. I personally have family members who are struggling. To add to that, this council just recently passed almost 10 mil county road tax increase. In my opinion, the 5.3 mil increase was legal by state law, but the remainder, which established a separate reserve fund, is not legal per state law. I don't suppose you will reverse this, but the least you can do is itemize both of these tax increases on our tax notifications. There are many other itemized taxes like fire, school, sewer. Why not new road taxes? These tax notices have just been revised this year, and it was my understanding that when you pass that the road taxes would be added this year. Well, that did not happen. Do you want to hide this from your constituents? This would be a very easy task to do, but our county administrator said last month that it would take reprogramming and cost too much. Come on. I disagree. It should be an easy process since the notices have just been revised. I will soon receive my real estate taxes for this year, and I hope to see these items on them. This information is not accessible on the county website, as alluded to by our county administrator last month. And even if it was, it should still be on our tax notices. I'm asking you to be transparent with your constituents and let them know how many dollars, not mills, how many dollars they are paying for county roads here. I hope you will do this post haste before our real estate notices come out this year. I sent Chairman Bowers an email requesting this be done and copied each of you on it. To date, I have not received a response. This is a really simple request, and hopefully it will not be necessary to go to your constituents with it. I'm sure they will all agree that this should be done. Again, I ask, are you trying to hide something from your constituents?
Thank you, Mr. Quinn.
Hi, I'm Brian Grant. I'm from Atlanta, but I purchased my property in 2016. Enjoy it. I tend to echo a lot of the sentiments that people have voiced about protecting the corridor. And I brought something, I don't like to be the guy to import things from another market and be that guy, but back in Atlanta we have a lot of problems. But one thing that works is something called the MPU system. Neighborhoods from Table Rock Road northward to the state line and from Oconee County line to the Greenville County line should formally assemble themselves as neighborhood planning units. If the remainder of Pickens County wishes to also join the MPU system can scale to encompass the entire county. As there is a pressing need for formalized input from South Carolina 11 corridor residents, as we see tonight, the first effort should be to assemble the affected residents impacted by activities along South Carolina 11 into an MPU system. As a transplant from Atlanta, I learned the MPU system is a strength of the city's growth and enables residents and businesses to better connect with the activities of the city council, the city, and the mayor's office. The MPU system also creates dialogue with the county authorities. In 2017, large numbers of Fulton County property owners were facing 300% annual property tax increases. The MPUs joined together with other Fulton County cities, entities, and organizations, aided by Nextdoor.com, to confront the assessor's activities. Their efforts resulted in the entire 2017 tax digest being thrown into the trash can after Fulton County sued its own tax assessor. Big things happen when people use a powerful platform to enhance their involvement. What is a neighborhood planning unit? Well, for Atlanta, the city of Atlanta is divided into 25 units, which are citizen advisory councils that make recommendations to the mayor and the city council on zoning, land use, and other planning uses. The MPU system was established in 1974 to provide an opportunity for citizens to participate actively in the comprehensive development plan, which is what we've been talking tonight, is the development plan for South Carolina 11. That's essentially what it is, which is the city's vision for the next 5, 10, and 15 years. It is also used as a way for citizens to receive information concerning all functions of city government. The system enables citizens to express ideas and comment on city plans and proposals while assisting the city in developing plans that best meet the needs of their own communities. This is a super simple, efficient way. It's not expensive. It's easy to manage, and we all get a voice, and we don't need to say, well, you're hiding from us as much as we hear tonight. And it kind of seems like there might be that going on, but it could just simply be we don't have good visibility of why these decisions are being made in the way that they are. So, thank you.
Thank you,
And
Mr.
if anybody would
Grant.
like a copy of this, I made 15 copies. Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chairman, that is the 30-minute mark.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The next item on our agenda is approval of minutes. We have before us the June 13, 2022 special called meeting. I believe that should reflect the changes that were suggested or brought up by Mr. Seda at the last meeting. The July 7th regular council meeting, and then the July 7th work session. Do I have a motion and a second to adopt these minutes?
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Feimster. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Wilson. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Seda.
I don't think there was any changes to the minutes. Were there?
I can't hear what's being
Okay,
said.
I thought he just said the changes that I requested were made. Did you just say that?
So I think where y'all left it at the last meeting was y'all were going to come back after going through the video and transcribed minutes and everything, and Mr. Seda was going to reinstate his motion.
So I would like to actually make a motion to amend, which is what has to happen. A motion to amend, to change, and I've got to find where it is.
It's on page 2 of the June 13th minutes.
Right. Because I want to get the language right.
Okay.
From the June 13th meeting.
It's under library budget, mid-page.
Councilman Alex Seda made a motion to freeze the library budget, the proposed operating budget Motion was seconded by Councilman Whitehurst. It should read, freeze and take the,
Extra
270.
270,000 in savings and allocate that instead to the 1% pay raise.
would you like to make the amendment?
Yeah, sure.
Can you reinstate that, please?
Sure. So Councilman Seda made a motion to freeze the library revenue equal to the proposed spending, and the extra 270,000 in savings would be allocated to the extra 1% pay raise. That's my amendment.
And I'll second the motion to amend. I did go back and watch that in great detail. Sat here the first time and I watched it for 2.5 more hours. So
Thank you.
I will second that. So I want to call for a vote on the amended minutes from the June 13 meeting. As long as there's no discussion. No discussion. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by raising your hand. All right, now back to the motion as amended on adopting these minutes as the June 13th meeting is amended.
Does that also include July 7th meetings as well?
That will include the July 7th meeting.
Okay. So I second that.
We have
Is that
a,
what we're doing?
We have a motion and second.
Oh, we do, okay.
yeah. No other discussion. All in favor of adopting these minutes as amended, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 4.
Mr. Chairman, there were, as a point, I wanted to make sure council was aware, we did go through our 30 minutes of public input. There were 11 people who spoke. There were approximately 9 other people who were signed up to speak. I just want to make council aware of that. You can extend it if you wish. I know that we have a full meeting tonight, so that is up to council's pleasure. But I wanted to make council aware of that.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks.
Motion to extend public input by 20 minutes.
How many people more we have to speak?
9.
There are 9 more that are listed, Mr. Whitehurst. I see some of them here.
Can we make a motion and then discuss it, because I think.
Yeah, he's got a motion.
I'll second the motion for discussion.
Discussion.
For the people out here, this is the first time we've seen this ordinance rewritten. We haven't had a committee meeting on this since the last time we sat down. So we haven't, I looked at it Sunday, I looked at it again this afternoon. I see the contradictions. We need to discuss this, and my motion was going to be, when we got to this, to put it in committee. I think we got a feeling of where you guys are, and I feel like you're telling us, hey, we're looking at this now too.
Chairman, point of order. How's this relevant to whether these folks 21 minutes from now? We're suspending our rules.
Well, I understand what Councilman Whitehurst is saying. I understand what you're saying, Mr. Wilson. The only thing I would say to that is, it is the first time we've seen it as a group hold together. It will go back to committee, but it is an opportunity. There are 9 other folks signed up to speak about it. I swore I would never do this again, but we have 9 other folks, and it is a passionate, that we may not get their input any other way.
I guess my point is that we're not going to have a long debate on this, I hope. We'll send it to committee.
But it's still important to get that information.
I don't understand where I'm going. I'm saying that allows us more time to have them talk, because our meeting's not going to be spent.
We won't have another public forum before the committee.
No.
So
I'm not saying we shouldn't have them speak. My point is that
when you're speaking, know that we still have time to talk about it.
Because we're not going to spend, hopefully, a lot of time talking about this particular thing. We're sending it back to committee. So the thing that we have to do tonight isn't going to be, we won't spend 30 minutes discussing this. Therefore, they have more time to say what they want to say.
Understood.
For speed of the meeting.
Yes, so we should. I think we should hear what everybody has to say. I would just ask if somebody else has already said it. We've heard that part. If there's anything new that you can add, please add to. There may be people that want to speak about other things too.
So I'll call for the vote to suspend our rules and allow another 20 minutes, I believe is what the motion was. All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All right, if you would please, Madam.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, I call Jan McCrary.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. I am Jan McCrary. I'm not a public speaker, but the Highway 11 ordinance was just too important to miss an opportunity to speak about. It's important to me and my family. I was born Jan Elrod. I grew up in 6 Mile. I've lived in Pickens County my life. My late husband was Ed Childress. He and I, along with another family with deep roots in Pickens County, purchased 100 acres right here on Highway 11 in Lake Kiwi about 15 years ago. It was purchased as an investment piece, but it was also purchased with development in mind. It has since been passed to our children and our grandchildren. We chose Highway 11 because of the beauty and the uniqueness of the land. I am absolutely in favor in preserving the character of the corridor. I am respectfully asking you as council just to listen to us and allow us to have a voice, to understand what is trying to be accomplished, and just let us participate in trying to find something that's acceptable to all parties. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm with Ms. McCrary, and you guys have heard me before, but my wife and I took a drive yesterday, Sunday afternoon drive down the corridor, and of course we found it to be a very pretty drive. We saw the great views of Table Rock, all that. It's amazing. But what we took away was the character that we saw was primarily this 2-lane road with a lot of trees, like a very natural sort of green area. And so we totally, when I read through the restrictions, I understood the franchise stuff, the neon signs, the other things that really took away from that. And that seemed consistent with the public forum that we had participated in. And I went back and looked at the ACOG report, and it doesn't say anything in there about there shouldn't be any development. It didn't extract that, and from what I read, that's what all of the public feedback was from their work. And so to me, they said what they are promoting is good development, smart development that's in concert with the area. And so we actually agree with most of the folks that spoke earlier. We think the draft does need more work. We think there is a lot of ambiguity and questions that come up when you look at it. And we thought that was going to be done in a committee meeting, and then I guess now it's here, and it doesn't seem like we really have time to deal with that today. So I just wanted to point out a couple of things that sort of hit me when I read through it. I mean, we've got the property that she's referring to has got 3,000 feet of frontage on the road. So, I mean, it doesn't make sense to me that, you can't have a 50-foot wide curb cut that goes in 150 yards that then has a 200-foot building that's all surrounded by trees. I mean, it doesn't speak to the fact that there could be development that still protects that corridor, that when you're driving through, you're still seeing a lot of the natural vegetation and the buffers and, all of those things. And so, we feel like there's a good opportunity here to have some more discussion and bring in some experts that deal with, design and site locations and things like that to help us work through these, I guess, questions that we have as it relates to how the restrictions are currently written, because I think it just creates a one-size-fits-all approach, and I think this property is much different than that, and so it doesn't really fit within those guidelines. So we just like an opportunity to participate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rivers Stillwell.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Rivers Stillwell. I'm a lawyer from Greenville. I spoke to you before about some of this commercial property on Highway 11. I want to be respectful of your time. I thank you so much for extending this. I'm glad I don't have y'all's job because I can see how much passion is on both sides of this. But somebody has got to say, you cannot stop all development on Highway 11. That is an unconstitutional taking. It's not a reasonable request. And so that parameter, and I appreciate the political pressure you're under, but my clients have a multi-million-dollar sale that's been stopped by this moratorium. I don't know if this kills it or not, but the devil's in the details. I agree with somebody said, the 1,000-foot setback, the 35-foot height restriction, the silhouetting against the sky, all of that stuff is extremely difficult for development. So you have gone too far from our perspective. I think it's apparent, and everybody would probably agree, this thing's not ready yet. It's very frustrating that it went back to committee and then it came back and we didn't see what happened to the edits in between. From our perspective, it's essentially the same. I think it needs to be baked a little more. It's one of those measure twice, cut once. I know it takes a lot of time, but there are a bunch of landowners that I don't think have any idea they're within that 1,000 feet. I actually had a law clerk go back and do the list. It's only like 3 pages of undeveloped land on Highway 11. I'll give this to the county attorney. Please mail this to them and tell them that their land is about to be downzoned majorly. I know the political will, and you talked about the will of the people, but they're constitutional rights of landowners who are the minority here that are to be protected. So I just ask you to be very careful with it.
Thank you.
Ken Smith.
Good evening. I'm conflicted. I have an agritourism business on Highway 11. My family owns 72 acres. Only 5 acres of that 72 is visible from Highway 11. We're up on a hill. The 1,000-foot, it's more than 3 football fields on each side of that road is ludicrous. I'd like for somebody to defend that distance. I had 3,000 kids come to our farm in 2019, and my family educated them on where their food comes from. It's why I grew this beard. My daughter is a school teacher here in Pickens County. She wrote a lesson plan for everything that we did. We have aquaponics. I was the bee man. I taught them the importance of pollinators in our food chain. We told them where milk comes from. They thought it comes from Ingalls. Every kid that we would ask them, where does milk come from? And a couple of them said Publix, but most of them said Ingalls. If you talk to any teacher in Pickens County that brought kids out there, they said it's the best field trip that they've ever took kids on, because not only do we have fun, we educated the kids. Here's the issue with the way this thing is written right now. It's subjective. It's a regulator's dream. I read it first and I said, oh, we've got an exemption for agritourism businesses, but there's no exception for that, because in the same paragraph, it says, but if you do anything, you've got to meet all of the requirements of, landscaping, lighting, stormwater. If you put that kind of language in front of a regulator, something that I learned a long time ago, what does a regulation mean? It's what the regulator says it means. The black words on white paper mean nothing. It's all about what the regulator thinks that it says. And I've been the...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Kilborn. Oh, you already spoke, sorry. Teresa Lewis.
Hi, my name is Teresa Lewis, one of the owners with my husband of Aunt Sue's. We, and you can take him off the list because I'll do the speaking for both of us. But we own Aunt Sue's, have owned it since 2012. Thank you, County Council, for what you do. I understand that your job is extremely difficult. We are and have been. My husband's lived here his entire life. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but in defense of change, yes, change is going to happen, whether we want it or whether we don't. We've lived here, we love the view. We love where we live, and we do not plan to change that. If we bring in a camping area, not an RV park, if anyone knew what our true intentions were, which some of the planning committee has been out to our place and they've seen and they know, if they don't listen to Facebook, if they don't listen to all those other areas, if they really want to know what our intentions are, come and see us. We are planning to fit in. We don't want to change. We live there. I've said that many times. Thank you. That's all I really have to say. And I know that we are relying on you guys to make a decision, but as well as growing, as any business wants to. We want to grow. We have to grow in order, in this day and time, to stay afloat. If we don't grow, we will sink. If someone else gets us, buys our area, you don't know what they're going to do. They may paint it pink if there's no restrictions on paint. So we are going to do our best to fit in with this area, with the build and everything there. As far as that intersection goes, I did not build the intersection. I didn't. It's a state highway. My suggestion is reroute it. Take the people coming down South Saluda, send them down Rock Ridge. There's other compromises that can be made as far as that goes. There's been 3 or 4 accidents up there recently from people flying down Highway 11. I can't take their foot off the gas. I can't do those things, but I can be there. I am one of the first ones that runs up that hill, as big as I am. I run up that hill to help anybody who has an accident at our intersection. I don't know where all these that are complaining are. Show up, help, be a difference. Don't just sit back and complain.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ed Lewis. Sean Hinton.
Thank you. Thank you, Council. And I appreciate you extending the time for us to speak, and I'll be very brief. But I did just want to touch, and I spoke at the last meeting. I first had the question of what is going to happen with this Highway 11 ordinance, as it did go to committee when we were last here, and nothing happened in committee, and here we are again for second reading, which will have repercussions. Frankly, I feel that the restrictions that have been put forth today are too restrictive, and it's certainly, preventing clear cutting of the frontage on the corridor is really what needs to happen here to protect the driving path. If the view shed is what's important, that is something that could be done in a much less harsh way to current landowners. The current language of 1,000 foot from each side is arbitrary. It's capricious. I don't know that it would ever hold up to judicial scrutiny. I agree that there's a constitutional right for landowners to use their property the way they see fit, and I'm shocked that in Pickens County we're talking so extensively about big government regulation and forcing landowners to behave in a certain way on their own property. So I just ask this council to listen more to the public and the landowners in that area. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Gowder. Hope I'm saying that last name right.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Gowder. I own a commercial property on Highway 11. I've owned it for about 20 years now, and I'm almost 9.5 acres. Most of it is out of sight, and 1,000 feet encroaches about 92% of my property. So if you limit, just like the other lady here that bought that property years ago for an investment primarily, did the same. And the loss of income by restricting what I might do there could be significant. So just use common sense and how you approach your restrictions, and like Kenneth said, put it in black and white and not leave it arbitrarily to just a few people to decide. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman and members of council, this concludes the public forum.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for sharing tonight.
Thank you for allowing us.
Next up on our agenda, we will get to Highway 11 in a little while, but next up on our agenda is the administrator's report. At this time, I actually want to present something to Mr. Roper, since he is the administrator. And I want to thank you for your hard work and your diligence as you do the business of the county. And I would like to give you your certificate for completing the Institute of Government's Level 2 this past week. Congratulations on that.
Absolutely did not know where that was going, so thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that. It's kind of like the practice of law. You keep practicing until you learn how to do it, right? But appreciate y'all's patience, and I'm excited about the opportunity to update you on a few things that are going on with the county. I'll try to be brief. I think I have 3 points, so I'll try to stick to those. Number one, I remind everyone about our Hiring Heroes program. You may have seen this covered on local television stations, on social media. We're pushing out more and more information. Talked just today to our HR department about putting this in some of our technical high schools and EMS training, technical college areas, to talk about coming to work in Pickens County, where we have modern equipment, we have flexible hours, we have progressive standing orders, we have involved medical control. We have the opportunity to train for special things like water rescue, swift water rescue, mountain rescue, in one of the most beautiful places in the country, as already been referenced here tonight. We're hiring heroes because Pickens County appreciates our emergency service folks, our first responders, and we want to keep making that point as we look to staff up. This county council has taken some bold votes about fixing our fire system, fixing our EMS system, and you put real money behind it. So we're wanting to let the public know that Pickens County Council supports these first responders, has put their money where their mouth is and with their votes, and that we're out in the business of hiring heroes. Anyone within the sound of my voice that would be interested in talking to us about that, we would direct you to the website or to HR, which is right outside of here. Please encourage folks to come fill out an application. We would love to bring on the next generation of folks that are going to be the backbone of our community. So I appreciate the opportunity to just make that point. Another thing that you gentlemen have set as a goal was promoting the culture of public service, and I just want to point out that we were starting to get some folks noticing that vision. The 10 at the Top folks just published an article in their regional paper covering all the 10 counties, talking about how Pickens County promotes public service. And they talked about 3 things. One was our Hiring Heroes program that I just talked about, that we are looking to hire heroes. The other was our Leadership Enhancement Academy for Public Servants, which you'll hear more about in just a moment, where we're training our own folks to take that next step in their career, because we think this is a great place to work and a great place to grow into your career. And also our new idea, which I think is unique, our Public Employee Service Corps. Our Public Employee Service Corps is where public servants, during their own time, off the clock, can take up projects that the United Way has described as being needed. Property cleanups, we just got notice of the 3rd one. We've already done 2. We just got notice of a 3rd one. So your vision, promoting a culture of public service, staff's embracing of that vision is starting to be noticed. So I wanted to just let you know that. And then in keeping with that, I've got in front of me some, to a Gamecock fan, this is a lot of hardware. So I want to acknowledge that, being a Gamecock fan myself. We just came back from the South Carolina Association of Counties County Convention, where we had 2 entries in 2 contests, statewide contests. One is called the Barrett-Larimore Contest. The other is called the J. Mitchell Graham Contest. Since 1973, the J. Mitchell Graham has been handed out to a county. Pickens County has never won that award. Since 1999, the Barrett-Larimore Award's been handed out. Pickens County has never won that award. I brought these 2 trophies tonight just to prove that we didn't get a participation trophy. These are the participation trophies right here, all right? So we like them, they're nice, they'll go on the trophy wall out there, but that's for entering it, that's for doing the work, that's for having the county program that we could brag on. But what I'm really excited about tonight to announce is that we received honorable mention, which is the highest we've ever done. We have one other program that got an honorable mention, and that was when we went from a kill shelter to a no-kill shelter that one honorable mention in the same award. But this is for the work that Chairman Bowers, Collaboration Manager Barney, and other members of the staff did to try to combat the prevalence of veteran suicide. So we did the resource mapping to try to find where there are gaps in the systems that allowed service members, veterans, and their families to not receive the care that they're entitled to receive. And we were, you'll see there at the award ceremony, Ms. Varney, Chairman Bowers, Vice Chairman Costner, and myself receiving this award. And since this ties for the second highest we've ever done, this is like getting the Outback Bowl trophy for a Gamecock fan. So not to be scoffed at. The national championship trophy is coming next year, folks. I'm working diligently on it. I was talking about the county. Just to make that, talking about the county. That being said, the last thing I want to talk to you about tonight is our runway and crossfield project. Director Salinas is here tonight. You'll know that y'all have allocated the money. There's a match of federal and state grants going together. I guess the best way to describe this to folks is we're building a lot of hangar space, a lot of taxiway space. We're opening up a whole new side to the Pickens County Airport to make it even more profitable and even more central to our life here. And we're putting it right behind the playground, if you know where the playground is at the airport. So to kind of sum that up and to let you know the big piece of news that we're unveiling here tonight, I want to ask Skeets Cooper with the State's Aeronautics Commission if he could step to the podium and give us some really good news there.
Thank you, Pickens County Council residents, home residents. This is my home here. I've lived here all my life. And I appreciate what this council and the councils before you have done at the Pickens County Airport. Since 1967, when it was talked around town, Pickens and Easley, about building an airport, and went through a process that I will not go through to get it built, opened up in 1969. We built a beautiful new terminal building. We built hangars and everything. And now then, we're fixing to move to this side. One thing about Pickens County, we're the upstate of South Carolina. If there's a flat piece of ground, somebody made it. Because you either got a hill or you got a hole. And to build a runway, to build an airport, we had to take two hills and fill in a hole. And so we've had to move to this side. This is a vision that was put forth years and years ago. Aviation in the state of South Carolina has over $16 billion impact on our economy. Now, for some of you may not care nothing about flying, that's fine. I can assure you, you tell me what kind of work you do, and I can tie it back to aviation some way or another. This county, that airport down there, has over $7 million annual impact on our economy. I've got grandkids that I want to be able to live and work right here in Pickens County. And I'm trying to let them do that if they want to through aviation and through business. We've got a map up here of the expansion. I'm glad to see it. And as the director, and I'm sorry I didn't introduce myself, I'm Skeets Cooper with South Carolina Aeronautics. I just assume that everybody knows me because I can't go nowhere without somebody knowing me. But I'm glad to be here tonight. I represent the 3rd Congressional District in the state. I work with 9 different airports. I tell them when I quit playing with the Pickens Airport, I went to play with 8 more. So now I play with 9 different airports in the state. And the state of South Carolina, the money that we put into these airports through aeronautics does not come from the taxpayers. Y'all will be glad to hear that if you don't like flying. Every penny of it comes through aviation fuel sales tax and airline property tax. And I'm glad to announce to Pickens County the largest grant that has ever been set forth by aeronautics in the state of South Carolina for the sum of $894. In other words, over $3 million to do this project, and it all come from when I go out there and fly my airplane. My tax dollars that I pay goes to the state, and everybody else in the state goes to there, and we distribute it with the 58 public use airports. I've passed out some of these, got my card in it. Anybody got any question, comments, or complaints? Please give me a call. Thank you, council. Thank you, community, for backing and supporting a great asset to Pickens County. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report. Thank you.
Questions for Mr. Roper?
Mr. Chairman, I have a
Mr.
question.
Sada.
First, I want to give a little praise to the litter control officers. I noticed that most of the pickups and the trailers now have, that are going in and out of the recycle center are tarped. And even the ones coming out of the landfill that have mulch are tarped. So the litter control officers, I think, done a very good job of that. And believe it or not, I think the litter is actually improving.
I think so
It
too.
is, yeah,
I think
because
so too.
you're not getting a lot of that trash leaving people's pickups and things like that. So I'd love to spend a half a day with these guys and see what they do and watch what they do. I'd love you if you'd arrange that for me. Because I'm really impressed with what they're doing so far.
Thank you.
Councilman Whitehurst.
I know at the last meeting, we'd had a discussion about the road tax being on the bill.
Yeah.
And I think we had asked you to look into the cost of doing that.
Yeah, so I can tell you, thank you for the question, because I made a note about that and then neglected to talk about it during my report. The auditor had informed us, and I think I conveyed this last month, the auditor, elected official, doesn't work for me, does a great job, don't misunderstand, but he informed us that the tax bill is full. There's no place to put another line without redoing the entire tax bill, which is a difficult time of the year to do that. We're right up against the tax bill. So what we were looking at is, could we put it online? I met with our IT department to ask them to come back to see what would that be involved in doing that, but I haven't received a report back yet, but we'll continue to follow up with that.
Is there a way that, obviously we can't do it this year, but is there a way that we can redo the way that looks so that,
Yeah.
that the taxpayer knows what they're paying for? I appreciate when I get my tax bill to see how it's broken out.
Right, I completely understand and want to do what we can do to be transparent. So I'd say two things on that. One is follow along at fixingcountyroads.com because you can see how the money's being collected and being spent there on the big scale, okay? As opposed to the way some other governments might do it where the money just goes in a hole and you don't know what happens. So we've got that on fixingcountyroads.com. The other thing is, all I can say there is that we will continue to talk to the auditor about that to come back with a cost, but I don't have any update on that right now.
I'm not assuming it's going to get done now, but we are looking at getting it online, right?
Yes, sir.
And how long will that take?
Well, I don't know because they haven't reported back to me. I mentioned it after our last meeting, but I haven't gotten that report back.
Okay, but you'll have that next time?
I would assume so, thank you. Yes.
Okay.
If you get an update before then, can you send it out?
Sure.
Any other questions or comments from Mr. Roper? Mr. Roper, I have two, just real quick. It's come to my attention, and I do appreciate to have the technology to be able to get this meeting on YouTube or a platform. I do know that there has been some hiccup. I've had some constituents have a hard time finding it, or they can watch it live and then it take a minute to be able to find it after it is live. I don't know if you're aware of that issue, not aware of that issue.
I am aware of that issue. It's something, and our public information officer, our community relations manager would have to give more specifics on this, but it's something that YouTube does, where when you do a live broadcast from YouTube, then they take a while for that to show back up in your history. So we are aware of it, and we're trying to look at alternatives.
And even finding meetings, once they do pop back up, actually, Man, all these YouTubers that I watch, because I've done away with real TV, sorry, Roy. All these YouTubers I watch, all I gotta do is go to my subscriptions and boom, their next live video is right there, making it easier for folks to find. If you would look into that as well.
I will, thank you.
Because it came, the meeting I went back to watch to clarify the meeting minutes. And that's something that we had already talked about and voted on a long time ago. In fact, that's what got us to the platform, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right. Yes, sir.
And then my final question, and I'm not asking for anything other than just an update. I know that we've talked about insurance and healthcare and self-insured and brokers and all the things. I don't, just 36,000 foot view, since I'm sitting amongst airport greatness, it just gave us wonderful news. But high level view, where do we stand on an update from our current broker on what we can expect and how to plan?
Right, so our current broker, and we met with them a couple of weeks back to talk about where we were in the process and how council seemed to have a strong inclination to looking at a self-insured option. And so they're supposed to report back when they have real numbers from the renewal, which they anticipate will be during September. So what I would anticipate would happen is in September, we would come back to this council with 2 options from this broker, and then if there are other options, there are other options. But that's giving them the chance to do their work to present us what I think is an option you all might be interested in.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else from Mr. Roper?
I would like to be able to have a little more discussion on this. I don't know this is the right.
No, this is definitely not the right time.
You know, you asked a kind of a 30,000.
Yeah, just, I wanted an update, just an update.
Okay.
All right. Anything else from Mr. Roper? Hearing none, we'll move to item 5, committee reports. I gotta find there, I'm sorry. Log number 152, the procurement process, there was no action taken by the committee. Log number 202, process for abandoned roadway, there was no action taken by the committee, and that is the end of the committee report. Item number 6, council correspondence. The committee of the whole meeting will take place next Monday night, August 15th at 6 o'clock in the main conference room here in the admin building. All non-essential county offices will be closed on Monday, September 5th in observance of Labor Day holiday. The next council meeting will be held on Monday, September 12th at 6:30 here in the admin building at the council chambers. Boards and commissions, there's an information table set up in the lobby this evening, just behind you, with more information about current vacancies, upcoming openings on all the various Pickens County boards and commissions. If you're interested to serve on a board, please stop by the table or see our clerk, Megan Nations, for more information. Is there any other correspondence that need to be announced? Hearing none, we'll move to item number 7, motion period and new business. We're now at our time for items that may not be on the agenda to be a motion be made to add them to the agenda. Is there any new motions? Councilman Wires.
I'd like to make a motion to add a discussion about our health care and a little more detail about what's going on with that to this agenda tonight.
So I have a motion to have a discussion about health care and what's going on with that. Is that correct?
Yeah. I have some questions and some comments and
Okay.
some.
Do I have a second for that?
So moved.
So I have a motion and a second that we add this to the agenda tonight. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. None opposed? All right, so that's unanimous. We'll add that just before executive session tonight.
Thank you.
Any other motion or new business? Hearing none. Item number 8 on tonight's agenda is recognition of graduates for the Pickens County Leadership Enhancement Academy for Public Servants, or better known as LEAPS.
LEAPS. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I wanted to do this as a standalone, although we had a formal graduation in which you were kind enough to serve as the keynote speaker. But I'm very proud of this. As I've said to, I think in another forum, I'm sinfully proud of this. I'm very proud of the way that some of our young leaders have stepped up. The folks you see on the left there, those 6, 7 folks, are the folks that through the money you all allocated, we were able to send to the NACO Professional Development Academy. This is a Colin Powell designed and led program during his life to train leaders in good leadership skills. And we sent those 7 specifically because their supervisors thought that they were the kind of folk that we want to encourage and grow in their career. My only condition to them was that they had to do something with it. If the county was going to invest this in them, they had to undertake some type of project as a group, something tangible we could come back and demonstrate. Well, they got into the concept of leadership and growing the next generation of leaders. So the project they did was an in-house leadership academy, leadership enhancement for public servants. So on their own, without any involvement from anyone else other than the 7 you see there, Austin Dunn, Tyler Merck, Trad Julian, Katie Corbin, Jamie Burns, Jamie Reynolds, and Jessica Varney. Those 7 designed, implemented, and executed this program. It was competitive in the sense that they had way more folks apply for the program than we had space to take. But they ended up taking 20 from different parts of county government and put them through the program this summer. I don't know if you could see this, but the 7 there that designed the program were able to get Secretary Grimsley from the State Department of Veterans Affairs, a retired 3-star general, to participate. Able to get Michael Cunningham, the interim CEO at ANMED Cannon, to participate. Able to get Angie Farmer, Executive Director of Behavioral Health Services, to participate. Dan Crosby with MetroCon. And I guess kind of the keynote big get was they had a video specific to this program from Dabo Sweeney. I didn't hear him say anything that really impressed me, but they seemed to be very, very happy with what he said. But regardless, I'm very proud of these 7 for designing this program. They designed it from the ground up. They implemented it. They put 20 folks through it. The 20 folks that have gone through it have now graduated. You'll see those graduates there. They're from everywhere in the county, from the clerk of court to HR to building maintenance to the EMS, all throughout, and all different levels of leadership. We have directors that went through the program. We also have frontline workers that went through the program, deputies that went through the program, and office workers that went through the program. Very proud of them. At the end of as a part of the program, they had to exhibit leadership in the terms of public speaking. They had to get up in front of their peers and talk about what they had learned. And for some, that was a real challenge. That's a tool they needed in their toolbox that they didn't have. I want to talk to you about one of the folks that I particularly resonated with me, and that's Jeremy Crum. He's a motor equipment operator. He's our lead tree technician. When a tree gets cut down because it's impinging the roadway, Jeremy Crum's the lead on that. Supervisor thinks the world of him, put him into this program. Jeremy Crum did not see himself as a public speaker. And when it came time for him to speak to the group was accepting of what he did. The group appreciated his effort, but Jeremy Crum was not satisfied with what he did. And he mentioned it again the next time. I messed that up. That can't stand. That can't be what I do. So on his own, he went and recorded a video sitting in his car where he was comfortable talking about the program. And it's 2 minutes. It's 2 minutes, but I think it does a better job than I can describing it, and I thank the world of Jeremy Crum for doing this.
Hey everyone, Jeremy Crum with Cohort 5. I just want to say thank you to everyone for the time and energy poured into this program to make it possible. This whole experience was very humbling for me, especially trying to get up and speak in front of everyone. It was super intimidating and probably my biggest weakness, so I'll take this and learn and grow from it. What I really took from this course, though, was a sense of confirmation on what I need to bring to a leadership role. I need to just stay true to myself and treat others how I would want to be treated, with respect. And you have to build trust with any kind of team that you're in, so just be honest to the ones you work with and interact with. Maintain that honesty. Invest in the people you work with. Try to get to know who they are, how they operate. This is going to help accomplish things a whole lot easier. With that comes good communication. That is key. Everyone needs to be on the same page. This is just going to help the goals get accomplished a whole lot better. I hate feeling lost, so good communication is a must. We all have to be held accountable for our actions, for our work, for everything we do. Hold ourselves accountable and the others. With this needs to be a little bit of understanding. Mistakes are going to be made. Just own up to them. People carry a lot of burden we may not know about, so a little bit of compassion could go a lot further than what we think, but in the end, we do have accountability. We also discuss change. This world's changing all the time. Most of the time you can't stop it, can't avoid it. Just be willing to adapt to the change, kind of open to it, and change is going to go a whole lot easier. There were a lot of great things discussed in this group. There's a lot of great minds in here, and just really appreciate it. I soaked up a lot, and I will take this wherever life may lead me. Thank you.
Again, congratulations to those graduates. I think you did a much better job describing the program and what the curriculum was like than I could have done, but thank you, County Council, for that vision.
Thank you. Item 9 on tonight's agenda is a consideration of a resolution 2022-21 recognizing September 2022 as National Suicide Prevention Month in Pickens County. Do I have a motion and a second that we adopt this resolution?
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Feenstra, second by Vice Chairman Costner. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 10 on tonight's agenda. Consideration of a resolution 2022-22 authorizing the substitution of one capital improvement plan item from a future fiscal year to the current fiscal year in exchange for the delay of another capital improvement plan item to a future fiscal year due to changing needs in the county roads and bridges department. I ask for a motion and a second to consider resolution 2022-22. I have a motion by Councilman Wilson. Do I have a second? Second by Vice Chairman Costner. Discussion.
I read the email.
Yeah.
Just kind of maybe explain a little
So
more.
basically what's going on here is when we have the capital improvement plan incorporated in the annual budget, it has, in my opinion, and I think probably in our lawyer's opinion, the force of law. So we can't just arbitrarily swap one thing from one year of the capital improvement plan for another without you all authorizing it. That's then part of the budget, so I'm bound to that. So if you've got that point as a given that this is a council level decision, then I know operationally that 1980 lowboy trailer, which carries some of our biggest heavy equipment, is no longer in spec for what we need to transport with it. It was different back in the 80s. So we need to get a new lowboy trailer to carry the stuff around for fixingcountyroads.com, et cetera. And so Michael Clark, the Roads and Bridges Director, suggested that the dump truck that was scheduled to be replaced is actually doing quite well, doesn't need to be replaced. And he said, could we just get the lowboy this year and get the dump truck in 2 years? So that's what he's suggesting. There's a little bit of savings there, which frankly we would use if we had a cost overrun somewhere else in the capital plan. But I just didn't feel like, I hate to clutter up your agendas with something like this, but I didn't feel like that was something that was in my authority.
Makes sense. Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item number 11 on tonight's agenda is first reading in title only of an ordinance that provides for the standards and procedures for devolving surplus county real property related to the more accurate and efficient operation of the county road system. I ask for a motion and a second to constitute first reading in title only of this ordinance. I have a motion by Councilman Wilson. Do I have a second? Second by Councilman Feenstra. Discussion. Councilman Wires.
I was just, Administrator raised his hand, and I was like, yeah, I want to know what you want to say.
If I could, you'll remember we talked about this in the committee. This is situations where old plats, old subdivision plats will have stubs of county roads, or a county road that has been accepted into the system will be in a slightly different location than where it showed on the plat. They're built by the developers, not by us. But we'll have these small idiosyncratic issues with the roads, and it will hurt the property owner. The property owner will say, I want to fix my driveway, but my plat says that's a county road. What we're looking at is, and we'll need to go through the process, this is first reading in title only, but can we come up with a system where you all authorize me to take care of those little property matters without, as I said, cluttering up the agendas? So just beginning the process of looking for a way that we could devolve some of these mistakes is what they really are, back in the public record.
Can I comment on, is this brought up with the Wintink Road situation down there in Central?
I don't remember the specifics. I know a little bit about Wintink, but it's that kind of situation where we have unclear records and we need to clear it up.
Okay.
There's several of them across the county where it might be a county road, but they're going to lean to call it a county road, but it shouldn't be a county road. And
Well, apparently we stopped maintenance at the last driveway and there's another 12 feet to the end of the road. And apparently they can't do anything because of that 12 foot.
Yeah, it's that type of situation that we're talking about.
Okay, that makes total sense.
Any other questions or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of first reading and title only, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 12 on tonight's agenda. A motion to recall from committee for second reading of an ordinance to establish standards and limitations on future development on the South Carolina Highway 11 scenic byway and matters related thereto. I ask for a motion and a second to recall this from committee for second reading on this ordinance. I have a motion by Councilman Wilson. Do I have a second? I'll second it for sake of discussion. Discussion. Councilman Whitehurst.
Just, as this is the first time we have seen the changes that have been made, there are some certain, in my eyes, some contradictions, some things that don't make sense, some ambiguous, some unclear stuff. I don't think we're ready to come out of committee yet to vote on this. There's too many questions that I have on it as I looked at it, and I was making notes on it before the meeting, and then hearing the crowd. We haven't really had a chance to go through and look at it. So my feeling is I'm not ready to discuss it as a second reading yet until we iron out some details. That's my fault.
I respect that view. Councilman Sada made the motion for the moratorium, and he and I discussed, and in fact, there's concern that this won't all be done before the moratorium expires, and there's been requests to actually, hold additional meetings to, make sure we got readings in and have a committee meeting in July. And I kind of agree with what you're saying, but out of respect for time and for everyone's time, I feel like letting it rock on, and I did give my word that we would pull it out and we would talk about it. And that's exactly what I plan to do, because the only way we're going to get the feedback like we got tonight from both sides is to have everybody here to give us the feedback. I believe that, and I'm going to be very blunt, and I don't mean any thing negative by saying this, but it's important to us that you guys show up and that the residents show up and tell us how you feel about it, because we had multiple ACOG meetings. There's been multiple opportunities and ways, and it's important that we know how the folks that live there feel. Private property rights are at my highest concern, and we have to be very careful. While I understand what you're saying and agree, for the sake of discussion, if nothing else, and it is second reading, I think it's important that we have these discussions open and we don't delay. Vice Chairman.
I just want to say, I'm kind of conflicted on this because I agree with Councilman Whitehurst. There's a lot that we need to talk about. I've always been of the opinion in my 5+ years of service that it don't count until you get to the third reading, and the third reading can be extended as long as you need it to. I'm concerned about the moratorium, don't want that to fall in place. I also don't want to create the look or perception that we're trying to rush anything through. I mean, this is something that we initiated a long time ago, is having these discussions. We started having these discussions, the first year that we started serving. And I'm thankful for Councilman Sada and Councilman Wilson when they came on and they said, this is a year we need to really do something, because doing nothing is going to cause more harm than anything. But I'm conflicted because I don't want to rush into it, so I'm not sure. Somebody needs to persuade me one way or the other. I mean, like I said, it don't count until you get to third reading. We do have the moratorium in place. I know that it's important. Our attorney has told us that we either need to extend that somewhat, or if we can't make those meetings. So that's the only thing that I'm concerned about. So I'm anxious to hear from you guys.
I am concerned also that we haven't studied this enough yet.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Seder.
Okay, let me give you my feedback on this. In October last year, I started looking into, when the administrator talked about the potential of a moratorium. And I did 2 mailers to the residents on Highway 11. A lot of them called me back and sent me emails, and I talked to them. I knocked on doors on Highway 11, as many as I could find that would actually had a doorway. I wrote letters to the editor. It was on Facebook. There's loads of feedback at the ACOG meeting. It was on TV. It was in news stories, county council meetings. This has been going on a long time. As Roy says, it goes back at least to 2017 or 18 as far as just discussing it. But I started in October. I've listened to everybody and what they had to say, but I was really focused on the people that would live in the corridor on Highway 11 and actually be regulated by the regulations and the rules. And an overwhelming majority, like 3-1, want to keep Highway 11 the way it is. Yeah, I mean, there's some questions where it's 5 to 6 to 1. And that's what I got. And I pounded out the numbers, and I've got the notes on all of it. The reasoning was varied, but it came down to it's a scenic highway, and you need to protect it. In 1994, when it was made a scenic highway, the state should have put those regulations in it, but it didn't. So it's left upon us now. People up there, what they want is no additional manufacturing, no additional commercial, no additional subdivisions. When it came to residential single lots, they were mixed. Some wanted unrestricted for like an individual house. Some wanted either a 5-acre minimum or some kind of a buffer. As far as the legal issue, I've started to research it, and I've spent some good time on it. I spoke to the planning director in Oconee. I spoke to the planning director in Anderson. I spoke to ACOG, the senior attorney at the South Carolina Association of Counties, who sees this all over the state. And I've read a lot of the key cases, like Lucas versus Coastal Carolina, Euclid versus Ambler Realty, and Cedar Point Nursery versus Hasid. And I got another one that dropped on my desk today, which I'm going to read. It seems very clear that overlays that restrict use to residential only are happening all over the state. So I would like to see the case law that says it's illegal to restrict an area to residential only. I just haven't seen it yet. The fact that it's designated a scenic highway means that the restrictions could actually be tighter, which you see in the case law. And if you just use your own common sense, if I wanted to buy a piece of land on Glassy Mountain Street in Pickens, and I wanted to put a dollar store on it, and I went to the city of Pickens and said, give me a permit, they would deny it. And if I had hired any one of these attorneys to fight it, I would lose. Because it's all over, and there's 100 years of case law that says government can restrict use of land. It can't restrict it completely, that's a taking, but it can restrict it substantially, and there's case laws all over. So my sort of take on it is I think we need to extend the moratorium because this needs to be looked at. I'll be honest with you, this is the first time I've seen this. And I don't want to critique it because there's no point in critiquing it, but the idea that it allows 3.5-story buildings on a scenic highway kind of defeats the purpose of a scenic highway. So I think what we should do tonight, or at least schedule a meeting to where we're going to talk about extending the moratorium, because under the moratorium ordinance that we passed, we can do that for up to 90 days, right, as long as we're making progress on it, which I think this is progress. I think we have some proposals. But at some point, we have to do that, so I'll leave that up to the leadership, but I agree with Vice Chairman Cosner and Trey that we need to look at it again, but the moratorium probably needs to be extended to give it a thorough look. When would the moratorium
What is?
It ends.
Moratorium ends September the 1st. The moratorium provided that if council was making progress, that it could extend it up to 90 days.
By what action?
By resolution.
Which is a single
That's correct.
action.
So I'm going to make a substitute motion to send this back to committee and extend the moratorium for 90 days.
So I have a substitute motion on the table to send this back to committee and extend the moratorium by 90 days. Do I have a second on the
Second.
Second by Councilman Feenster. Any discussion on this substitute motion?
Yes.
Councilman Wilson.
can we do a motion this evening, a standalone motion this evening to extend this?
That's
To
what
extend
we
the
just,
moratorium?
the substantive motion would do just that.
Yes.
It would, I must have misheard, I thought it was to go to a committee to discuss extending.
No, it sends second reading back to committee and extends the moratorium by 90 days. That was the substantive motion.
Yes, sir. Okay. Misunderstood.
I want to be clear, Madam Clerk, is that what you have? Vice Chairman.
I would add to 90 days or third reading, whichever comes first.
Oh, yeah.
Is that an assumed if you pass an ordinance?
You need to make the motion clear, so if you want to add that, amend the motion.
So I make a motion that we amend that to include or until third reading.
So I have a motion to amend the substantive motion to recommit in the ordinance at second reading, recommit it, extend the moratorium by 90 days, and the amendment is or third reading, whichever comes first.
Correct.
So moved.
So I have a second by Councilman State on that amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, all those in favor of the amendment to the substantive motion, please indicate by raising your right hand. Thank you, gentlemen. So the motion on the table is the substantive motion that was just amended to recommit, extend the moratorium by 90 days, or third reading of this ordinance, whichever comes first. Any discussion on that?
Just a technical question for the attorney. A motion, do we have to make a resolution out of that? Is that the motion? I mean,
that would be the...
You're voting on it here.
Just want to make sure.
Taking action is what's required.
Okay.
Any other discussion there?
Just point of clarification.
Councilman Wilson.
Mr. Seda referenced takings, and there was commentary this evening from the attorneys that there's a Fifth Amendment issue associated with takings. It just happens that we sat through a public planning training course recently, longest 5 hours of my life, honestly. And they were very purposeful in discussing takings, and there's a 3-part test for takings. If you guys will just bear with me, I hate to read to folks. What is the character of the government action? So is it regulatory or is it physical? So are we taking the property and paving over it, or are we making some action to limit it? I will encourage the attorneys here to correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm an engineer by training, I'm an attorney. What is the economic impact of the regulation on the property owner? And what is the extent of interference with distinct investment-based expectations? You heard some folks about the land for the purposes of marketing and sales and development, et cetera. So clearly there's a concern there that is reflected in the definition of the 3-part test for takings. But the character of the approach that we're taking, on the other hand, as Mr. Seda mentioned, allows us the opportunity to do these things with a well-paved road of previous actions and other government organizations. So we can take actions, as we've discussed, without it being reflected as a taking. There will always...
You make sure you have your mic where...
So, as long as you hear me. So we can take actions with regards to, the plan associated with it, with the understanding that there may be a disagreement that, that is contested in court or whatnot at some point. But in our case, we believe we have the opportunity and the right to take these actions.
Any other comment? I do think it's important to note that we all agree that we want to protect what's there, but it comes down to exactly what you're just talking about. And I believe someone said something about big government. We've all been very vocal about that, Councilman Whitehurst especially, and then protecting the private property rights of those that physically own the land, and then those that are around the land. This gentleman spoke about the Grant family, and you're right, he did it right. They did it right, but he owned the property, and that's a very fine line. And walking that very fine line is exactly where we're at, which is what makes it so difficult. Any other discussion, comment on the motion at hand, the substantive motion at hand? Hearing none, all those in favor of the substantive motion as amended, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 13 on tonight's agenda is the consent agenda.
We're going to do the health care.
After the consent.
Oh, sorry, my fault.
Item 13 is the consent agenda. I have county employee handbook to go to the committee of the whole. Do I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda?
Motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Feenstra. Discussion? All in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. Item 14 in the amended agenda is discussion on health care. So I believe the discussion at hand is going to be around self-insurance and where we stand on all that and making sure that we're all on the same page, but it was Councilman Waters' motion, so I will yield the floor to allow him to explain.
I've been on this topic for 6 years, and it's become very frustrating. And I know council's trying to work through this, and staff is trying to do what they can with it. Last year, this council voted and moved to move towards self-funded. And as a matter of fact, the budget had a $3 million set aside for that purpose. It's over a year later, and we brought these guys on from McGriff in December. Now, I want to make sure I got this correct. You and I had several discussions about them coming on board and presenting plans to us. And they were presenting 3 plans to us, which they did in June. And you and I had talked about that. Am I correct? And you said you'd like one particular plan, but we looked for options, and I said, are we going to be self-funded? And you said, yes, well, we're in that direction. I want to. They were saying they had some plans. They were doing some stuff. There's all this talk about self-funded has been the direction that we indicated to them that we wanted to go, correct?
Yes.
And in the direction in which they said they would be going. Well, what they presented to us, they basically said, we don't recommend you do self-funding. Matter of fact, their example of self-funding and their 3 options was to take what you have and just add gap insurance on top, which is just an insult to the intelligence of everyone on this council. But then in conversations with the chairman, he had talked to them, and they indicated to him that they were under the belief they were just supposed to be doing kind of an introductory meeting to us. That this wasn't supposed to be presenting a plan, it was more of a get to know. Am I correct in what they?
Yeah, because you can't present a plan on a renewal that you don't have true numbers for, was the point.
No, right, but they knew that, we knew that was going to be the case anyway. But an idea of where it was going to go and our options would be. We weren't looking for lock numbers because you can't get that till you get your reinsurance number, which is the last part, and not even the biggest part, but it's the last part of doing it. But what they indicated was that we were just here to kind of get to know you, and I don't know what the 3 options were. Now, we're going back to them and saying, well, can you come up, give you another run at doing self-funded, when they said, even themselves, they don't agree with self-funded.
Mr. Chairman, can I get a real quick confirmation? It's my understanding, just from a parliamentary perspective, that discussion in board format is focused solely on motions and discussion of motions. Do we have a motion?
No, we don't have a motion. We're discussing.
I had a motion to add a discussion. I understand what you're saying. For parliamentary, I follow your thought process there.
I'm getting to where I want to go with this. We're having my concern is they're going to present us something in September supposedly, and when they can get solid numbers, when that'll come, whether that'll be something. If it's something that once again is not what we think it is, we're not going to have time to be able to come up with anything if we were to try to select somebody else to give us self-insured. So, and so the problem is we're going to be back in the same boat for another year is my fear. That's my whole fear of this, is that we have just kept, and these guys have sat there and delayed this for us until June. They were supposedly working on something.
Wait, be clear on who these guys are. So
our current brokers.
So, Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question, please? Just from a purchasing perspective, McGriff was selected out of a pool of folks associated that were qualified and presented themselves to work a package for us?
Yes.
So they led themselves ahead of the pack to come in and present to us?
Yes.
And so they were chosen through the purchasing process?
Correct.
So through a process that we're governance for, not necessarily direct contributors to, they were selected to come in. They came in, their presentation was, You know, if you guys have done it for the last 10 years, you guys would have gotten ahead, but in the last 2 years, you would have lost money on being self-funded. And so and as part of their presentation, they basically said, making sure I'm understanding this correctly. As part of the presentation they give as the vendor that you guys selected through the vendor selection process that we, by simple fact of our role, are not supposed to be a portion or part of, they basically presented that, you know, this is the area where you would take a hit this year. We don't recommend that you do it at this time. You know, in the near future, if things return to a normal market, then you should consider it at that time. Was I incorrect? Did I misremember that? Or was that not exactly what the folks you guys selected presented to us in the discussion?
That is what they said. I'll tell you that they also added one thing to that, and I want to make sure this is clear. They said, look, this is a projection. You don't have to follow our best projection. If you still want to do self-funded, there is a certain amount of, I think Mr. Seda had a term he used for it.
Gambler's ruin.
Gambler's ruin, that there's a certain amount of that in it that, you know, and that they'll push forward with us if that's the direction that we want to go, despite their best projection. So yes, what you're saying is true, but they're not opposed to it philosophically. They just didn't see this as the right time. But this board may feel differently about that, and I'll certainly take that direction.
Okay, so the thing that goes in my mind is, I had an attorney tell me one time that all he can do is give advice. He definitely don't have to go to jail with you if you don't listen to it, right? So in this particular case, y'all went through your process, you selected a vendor, they came in, they made their proposal. We clearly cannot listen, you know, and take our risks. The person that came in, you know, presented a compelling argument that that type of entity that came in gets kickback, not kickback, that's the wrong term. They get money sent back to them in credits associated with the volume of spending that we have from the individual insurance companies as a means of revenue development for their purpose. So they have, according to what he said in the public discussion, was that they have a strong incentive not to direct us down to self-funding because the area we might spend money in might be more economically important to them if we don't do self-funding.
And you gotta be careful there, because that gets into some libel and slander without proof, and et cetera, so.
That's what the guy said.
But you have to be very careful of that, but you're right, that's not what you're saying, that is what, yes.
No, I don't have an opinion on it, because again, I'm an engineer, right? I mean, I listen to insurance folks like I listen to lawyers, right? However, ones that you trust. So you guys vetted them, you brought them in, and we're in a role again. And me personally, this is the first time I've been associated with this type of discussion. You know, in particular where we brought in the second guy, and he kind of gave a conflicting discussion based on his specializations. Right? So I'm just paraphrasing, not slandering. I wouldn't want to slander the largest industry in the country.
Can I respond?
Yeah, and I think the point that Councilman Wilson was making, that was just a recap to get everyone up to speed, make sure we're all on the same page, is I think we all know where we currently stand and what we're currently waiting on, which is what our clarification on during the administrative report time. And what action tonight is wanting to be taken, I think, is the point he was trying to make.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Well, let Councilman Hurst, because I did interrupt him.
I'm gonna say that that's not, I sat in the meeting, that's not what I heard, okay? I've been studying this stuff for years. And you just said a few minutes before that, we brought them on board specifically to go towards self-funded. And they said during the interview process, that's what they would do.
Well, they said they had that expertise, yes.
Right, but.
They didn't commit to a course of action.
Right, but their idea that they don't recommend it, that's not what we had tasked. We said as a council.
Actually, go ahead, I'm gonna let you finish. But
we said as a council, we wanted to go self-funded, okay? And we set aside money for that. And what we've been told by these guys is after they said, yes, we will get you to self-funded, their self-funded option that they showed in their model was an embarrassment to anyone that knows anything about the insurance. And it was like they just completely, they didn't even look at it and said, here's an option if you want to look at it. Maybe you don't want to do it this year. They threw something together that was, and the reason, and I'm not against what you're saying, I've just been studying this for a long time. And what they basically did to us was just, stop, don't pay attention to that. They basically lied to us. I'll tell you, and I'll say it in public, that what they said was a self-funded option was going to cost us significantly more money. And I just say, from a factual standpoint, that's not even a discussion to talk about, because.
So do we have an action item that you want tonight? I think that's really the point we're at.
I understand. My point is, I know these guys are going to produce something in September for us. Please, as a council, if they can't come up with something that's real, and we got to be able to move quickly from that. And this idea that we can't be involved in the process, I have an issue with that, because it is a contract that is over $5,000 that we pay these people. And therefore, it needs to be voted on by council under our own rules.
That's not what the procurement ordinance says. I mean, if that's what y'all want it to say.
Well, I would like to see where it says that in the ordinance. I'd like to actually see the language, because I feel like, you know, we give the administrator $5,000 of hearsay on stuff and employees of the county. This is a separate contract the county has with an individual. He's not an employee of this county.
So, Councilman Whitehurst, for point of clarification, and Mr. Hendricks, you're in the room for this very reason.
Yes, sir.
But we don't decide what vendor, what make, even what year, if it comes down to different model years, that $280,000 dump truck we purchase. That's not decided by this council. Is that correct?
That's correct. The procurement code allows a process for purchasing things that council wants to be purchased. So if the solid waste wants to purchase a motor grader, then they say we need a motor grader. Council says you want a motor grader. Then we put out bids for that motor grader. It goes through finance, and there are specifications in those bids that go out to the motor grader vendors. So whoever wants to bid on it, they bid on it, and there's a decision made through finance on who wins that bid. If they have an objection, it comes to the county attorney. The county attorney makes a recommendation, and then it goes to the administrator. So there's a process that goes through there. So what Councilman Whitehurst's focus would be is on the bid itself.
Well, you're looking at a bid. This is a qualification. There's a difference between a bid and
I use the motor grader. It's the same process that you
well, we've done this in the past, and I know we have, that we have been able to evaluate stuff as a group. And the problem is that I feel like maybe we have a poor way in which that they were vetted out.
I will say that you're correct, Mr. Whitehurst, and I want to say this respectfully because I know how passionate you are about this, and I respect your passion on this. You are correct that in the past, council has appointed committees and administrators have said, okay, and they've gotten involved in procurement issues. I don't think a fair reading of the procurement code allows that. It's just not in there. So what I would say to that is I don't really have an opinion on what it should be. I just know what it is.
Okay, you understand my passion on the issue.
Yes.
We're stumbling over stuff because we can't get it done. And I really want to get this done, because my fear is when I'm off of this council in December, this all goes away. And we're talking about millions of taxpayer dollars and better health care for our own employees. And that's end of discussion for me. And I'm sorry,
So, Madam Clerk, I need you to do a favor, if you would. Please pull the minutes for any discussion around going self-insured, et cetera, maybe over the last several years, and look for any specific direction. Because if we did vote to go self-insured, then we need to make sure that's exactly what we're doing, or if it was looking at the options, or whatever that verbiage may be. And if I didn't learn anything last month, it's that those minutes are very important, and we need to make sure that we're following. That's checks and balances is what it's all about.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilman Sato.
I think this really comes down to two questions. And question one is, do we continue to use the cost-plus system, which is what Blue Cross Blue Shield charges us for medical care? Or do we do a self-funded system? Now, once you've decided if you want to go self-funded, then you have to decide if you're going to hire, who the broker you're going to hire to manage that self-funded program. Because Blue Cross Blue Shield will be out, and you'll have somebody to manage it. To me, I'm a numbers guy. I mean, this is a numbers thing, probability and numbers thing. And the hard numbers, the last 12 years, even with no cost management, supports the decision for going self-funded. The medical plan was in the black 9 years. That means we paid Blue Cross Blue Shield more money than we had in claims. So if we had that system ourselves, we would have profited from it for 9 years. 2 years, we would have actually, the costs were more than the premiums we paid them, and Blue Cross Blue Shield lost some money. In 1 year, it was a break even. And that's what no cost matter, because Blue Cross Blue Shield probably doesn't manage costs much at all. They just pass the costs on and raise your rate. The guy that came in and offered and talked about the self-funding option, I think his name was Jonathan, he estimates the savings for us at least $1.1 million if we go the self-funded plan. Now, gambler's ruin is that some plague hits and everybody maxes out on their insurance. You're self-funded, you're on the hook for it. You don't have the money in the bank, you're wiped out. Gambler's ruin, you made one bet and it blows up on you. What you do is you have reinsurance and you sell that high-end risk away to somebody else. You give them a payment and they take it over. That's what you do. So you don't have that gambler's ruin, you sell it. Or you pay somebody to take it. So the risk of that is zero in this case. I mean, I think with the right managers, the numbers prove that there's great savings here. I would try it for 3 years. I mean, the numbers are there. Even when the system was in the red, it wasn't in the red that badly. I mean, I think I calculated over the 12 years, it was something like $8 million in savings. And I do that all day long. Try it. So I support it. I mean, I think the trade, what you need to be saying is we need to make a motion to go self-funded, and once we do that, we then put out the RFP and try to hire a broker and move forward.
Vice Chairman. Yeah, I was just going to say that I recall, and I'm anxious to hear what you come up with, Madam Clerk, on your research, is that we've not taken a vote specific to we're going self-funded and vote. We have voted to we want to explore this, and in the process of exploring this, it's gotten a lot of confusion on both sides. I agree. I think that the numbers look right to become self-insured, but I want to see real numbers. I don't want it to be, let's guess at it. And I've never, and the part of the exploring was seeing real numbers, which is a horrible catch-22 because you can't get real numbers unless you're the broker. And then we've been chasing our tail and fussing at you, and you've been very frustrated. And I get it because I've sat in with you on a lot of those meetings to understand more about how it works. And I do believe we can save a lot of money, but we have to see real numbers. But without the motion and vote on for full council to say direction to him, we're going self-funded, he's still in the exploratory mode, which puts us in this limbo forever.
And I want to say to that point, because I do remember a lot of these discussions, and you and I have had them, and I've actually said for years now that it does make sense. 2020 was a very unique year in healthcare. It's what I do for a living. 2021 was a very unique year in healthcare. It's what I do for a living. 2022 thus far has been, but not as bad. And there has been some uncertainty around, and I've said that to you. Been very open and honest about it. And I believe the future of healthcare is changing daily, down to how you get your healthcare, which is going to obviously affect cost, some good, some bad. And I'm very interested to see what it would all come back at and with. I don't think it's right or fair. As being someone that there have been accusations that I've been involved in manipulating an RFP process, that has never happened and will never happen because I have nothing to gain from it. That's not me. It's plain and simple not me. And I do not want the illusion that any of us are trying to do something like that. Because if you're going to do it and it's going to appear that way, then people are going to assume it's that way. And whatever products you end up with, Councilman Whitehurst, you're rolling off the council. You were just trying to help a buddy out before you left. And that's the last thing, because it's I agree, it's saving the taxpayers and it's giving the best service possible for every county employee out there and their family. And that's the reason we do it. But that's the reason we have to do it right.
Well, and that's a great point. And maybe we could, I would love to entertain a motion that we're going to go self-funded and put an RFQ out, you know?
But do you put an RFQ out when you have a broker that if you say, we don't want to see anything but self-funded, Do you wait for that broker to be unhappy with that broker before you go put another RFQ out?
Well, the problem is that he gives us a program, say it saves us a little bit of money. We don't know what other options, we could have saved a whole lot more money because we got nothing to compare it to.
But we did, because part of the last RFQ process asked you to be familiar, aware, and pitch self-insured. So you do know that.
No, we only have one broker right now, and
Well, you'll only have one broker if you do another RFQ. That's the way it works.
understand. But if certain, I don't know. I'm sorry, guys.
Because you can't.
Mr. Chairman, we got a memo just a couple days ago where Jonathan Logan gave us estimates.
Estimates.
Yeah, I don't think you can get real numbers because we're talking about next year.
You can't.
So what he's, no,
September.
what
That's
he's,
the reason the question was asked in the administrator's report. When will we have real numbers?
yeah, but real numbers, it's like saying the real numbers of the Dow and Jones Industrial Average next year. I mean, we don't know what those numbers are. These are forecasts.
You're right.
You know, so he gave us a forecast, which was, he felt that our claims would be 4 to 5 million. He felt the administration and what I call the gambler ruin insurance was $1 million. So it's about anywhere from 5 to 6 million. Premiums right now we charge employees is 7 million. That's the 1 million in savings. Now, I think the Dow Jones Industrial Average is going to be 35,000 next year. I could be right, I could be wrong. I mean, that's what he's doing here. I don't think you're going to do any better than that.
So to my point.
So what else can we ask
8 months ago, we put out an RFP or an RFQ. We got one back. We hired a broker. They gave us the opposite of what a competitor gave. That hindsight, the competitor never should have been in front of this council. That was not his job or place. Shame on me. It was supposed to be so that we could better understand self-insured, and it ended up being a sales pitch is what it ended up being, which is not right, which goes against our procurement code. That's my fault. I was misled, and I'm going to leave it at that. But what I'm saying is we've had a broker for 8 months. Before you go put another RFQ out, why would you not let the guy that you just, or the broker firm that you just went with? That's where I'm struggling to understand. To me, this isn't an argument over self-insurance. It's, I don't like our broker. Let's get another broker. And that's where my problem is.
Yeah, like I said, I don't have any qualm with that. I'm just saying, you know, we know how much premium we're collecting from employees. You can look back at what our claims costs have been, you know, and try to project them to the future. Something can happen. You can drop out the profit from there or the savings.
Mr. Sada, those are the real numbers that he's not, I'm thinking of the real numbers of what are the claims, what have we paid
No, but they're here.
up to that point.
The history.
We don't
know the future.
He's kind of guessing too. We all get
He
that.
doesn't have the
I
history.
guess my frustration.
He doesn't have the real numbers.
No, he does. He has what Ken gave him some information, I guess.
So when you say real numbers, I'm talking about
the history. I'm not talking about the future.
They're right here.
Yeah, okay, well,
So those are numbers. Is there an action on this item tonight?
I guess my struggle is that we have a broker now who said that if we go self-insured, it's going to cost us significantly more money, okay? And we have someone else that says it'll cost you significantly less money.
I don't think that's what he said. He said your risk is substantial and I wouldn't do it.
That's right.
Well, he showed us the option. There were 3 options on this thing, and he showed us the option.
Made up numbers, yep.
You know, he said, here's what's going to cost you for self-insurance. And you know what he did? He took our old insurance and added gap insurance on top of it and said, that's self-insurance.
So back to my question, is there an action item on the agenda for tonight, or on this topic for tonight?
So, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Wilson.
My recollection was exactly what he just said, that the market right now doesn't look clarified enough from the shakiness that we just went through to make that jump right now. You have a known kind of issue with the regular insurance versus this. If it's my decision, to move forward, we've already gone through the RFQ process. I absolutely do not want to participate in anything that violates the RFQ process. Like you said, the discussion with the guy that came in got close to the line you were talking about a second ago, and I appreciate how adamantly you kind of took responsibility for it. That's the leadership role, obviously. But if you recall during the discussion, we certainly with Mr. Hendricks's input, we pulled it back from where it could have gotten very gray area. If it's for me, we stick with the broker and process that we currently have. We give those guys some directions, get them to give us a more detailed explanation. of both options, in September. We certainly can all discuss it, we can vote on it. If they give us multiple options, I would be remiss from a governance level in trying to force them to retract an agreement that they've already gone through the RFQ process. I think that's micromanaging, and it certainly doesn't seem like it meets at least the letter of the intent of the purchasing policy. And then if we don't go that way, then we have a year to talk to folks and to hire some folks to come in that could give us just a targeted sort of education process on it, so that we're all more capable of doing this. I absolutely do not want to participate in any discussion, and I won't vote for any discussion that forces them to bridge in any way the RFQ process they've already done.
I totally respect that. I respect where you're coming from. This guy that came in, he did a lousy job. He's supposed to educate us. I get it. I get where we are. My fear is we'll get some watered down version, and we'll be back down there because we have pushed, and I pushed, okay? And I know I've just been one of my passionate issues for a long time. And that frustration comes out, and I apologize to this council for that. And I respect your everything on it. And I'm not going to make a motion. I'm not even going to put it out there. Let's let these guys do their thing. But boy, if I could just get that message to you about what shenanigans is going on with this industry. And that's it for me. I'm sorry.
Madam Clerk, if you will, please go back to those minutes just to ensure. Anything else on item number 14 as amended? Hearing none, items 15 on tonight's agenda is executive session. I make a motion that we go into executive session for legal, section 30-470A2, and that's legal advice on county road system. And then economic development, section 30-4-70A5, Project Big Dog. I'll make the motion. Is there a second? Second by Councilman Feimster. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you, gentlemen. We'll adjourn to executive, and we'll return for action as needed afterwards if you'd like to stick around.